Every year, over 5 million cars roll off Nissan's production line onto the world's roads and racetracks. In Asia, 1 in every 15 cars is a Nissan. Inside the company, it's a cause for celebration.
1億5000万台を超えたということでございます。
But rewind just over a decade earlier, the company had posted a $6 billion loss, and the employees' spirits were not so high.
Nissan cars started to become very common and bland looking.
This idea that if you just simply put almost an infinite variety of options out there, you're going to hit everyone in the market. In so many ways, that was a failure.
I'm here to communicate to you the Nissan revival plan. We will implement the following plant closures: Murayama plant, Nissan Shatai Kyoto plant.
With unprecedented access inside the company, we look at how this Japanese car giant was forced to look further afield for its saviour, and find out how one man was able to kick Nissan back into gear.
Resolute approach in front of adversity.
Located in the heart of Yokohama, Nissan's headquarters is a testament to the company's popularity in Japan. The ground floor serves as a public gallery, showcasing their most popular cars. And it attracts more than just your average petrol head. From young fans
息子が車が大好きなので、今日はここに来たいっていうので来ました。
to nostalgic old-timers.
ブルーバードに乗ったことありますね、今ちょっと思い出しました。はい。
日産は日常にっていうか、ずっと小さい時からなんでしょうね、馴染んでるって言ったらおかしいんですけど、ずっとあるっていうイメージですね。
This sentiment is shared across the country as Nissan built a brand intimately connected to Japan. It's something that Professor Audrey Chia thinks set Nissan apart from its early rivals.
As a brand in Japan, Nissan is the only car company that has the name Japan in its name. So Nissan means made in Japan. So it carries national pride in its name. There's no other car company that has that kind of symbolism. The best example I have about the emotional attachment to Nissan as a brand actually came from a Nissan employee that I met. And he told me with great pride, my grandfather worked for Nissan. My father worked for Nissan. And now I work for Nissan. So such is the attachment that even some employees have a family tradition of working in Nissan and being proud to be Nissan employees.
そうですね。じゃあ早速開けてみましょうか。
The iconic cars that reflect this history are kept under lock and key in another warehouse. Ryuji Nakayama is in charge of preserving and protecting Nissan's history.
ここはですね、日産ヘリテージコレクションといって。
Inside, it's a motor enthusiast's dream, with cars dating back to the 1930s, when Nissan marketed their cars overseas under the Datsun brand name.
アーカイブって言うとどうもドキュメントのイメージありますけれども、こういう車の現物も立派な生きたアーカイブでありまして、ここに並んでる生産者の、7割は、ちょっと整備すれば走れるんですよ。動態保存なんです。輪止め外せばちゃんと今にも動き出す感じがしますよね。一 一番古い車はこれなんです。ダットさんの12型って言って、私ども日産自動車が創業した年の、製品なんですね。ただこの時代はまだ車はまだ手作りで、年500台ぐらいしか作れなかったっていう、草創期なんですけれども。
Take off with the most exhilarating new car of the year, the Datsun Turbo ZX. Now available with 5 speed.
From 500 cars a year to over 500,000, as throughout the 1950s, 60s and 70s, the company experienced a phase of phenomenal expansion.
Datsun 280ZX.
It was the age of the automobile.
Limited number.
Car ownership in Asia increased by over 10 times. And Nissan was riding the crest of this wave, making a name for itself by producing affordable and reliable cars.
これが初代のダットサンサニーで、これ日本でもマイカー時代の扉を開いたっていうことで随分エポックメイキングな車ですけれども、これもやはり世界中に輸出されて、もちろんアジア諸国、にも輸出されて、やはり日本のマイカーのために作った、そういう要するにサラリーマンの年収でも買えるっていう商品企画だったんですね。
But the real drivers of Nissan's growth were on the racetrack. And when the plucky Japanese car brand took on Porsche and Alfa Romeo and won, the world began to take notice. Wins on the racetrack propelled Nissan from a local Asian manufacturer to a respected global brand. And in America, actor Paul Newman became the company's #1 marketing tool.
Well, they say winning isn't everything, it's just all there is. That's why I won't settle for second best. No, not without a fight anyway. Great cars, great backup, great value. You just can't lose if you're a Nissan dealer.
これ出していいですか？ごめんなさいね。車触るときにはちょっとこういうものを使うんですけども。
In 1971, Nissan's 240Z became one of the fastest-selling sports cars of all time.
そう、こういう全体的な形ですね。本当に美しい。そんなにエロいことをやってるわけじゃないんですけど、でも本当にね、こういう1260ミリっていうこの前高にうまく落ち着いたっていう、これは本当に美しい形だと思います。
One of these sports cars was sold every 10 minutes in the USA.
Z、フェアレディ Z って日本では呼んでます。日産らしさっていうのは結構この車に凝縮されているってよく言われます。みんなのために、元気に走れる、お求めやすくかっこよく美しい、車が大好きなメーカーだ。
Nissan's cars in the US were associated with fun, and they also were associated with sturdiness and strength. And if you are in a big country like the US, sturdiness and strength of the car matters a lot.
But by the 90s, Nissan was veering drastically off course. Classic designs like this seem to be a thing of the past. The company's designers appeared to have become complacent, as Nissan's new models weren't turning any heads.
I think the first signs of Nissan's flagging energy or decline actually came from its design. So we saw that around the late 70s and the 80s, Nissan cars became very commonplace, but they also started to become very common and bland looking.
Nissan was bracing itself for a bumpy road ahead, and the reputation they'd built up over decades was about to come crashing down.
When a company is as large as Nissan was, the spiral down is not immediate. Actually, it becomes obvious probably when it's already reached a critical mass, and it's very difficult to turn around, and it kind of led to a collapse.
With over half a century of history and expertise, Nissan had become a powerhouse of the automobile business, embodying Japanese design and manufacturing prowess.
And you're imagining the wind flowing over the car.
Cuban-born American Alfonso Albeza has been with the company for 30 years, pushing through cars with globally appealing designs.
I'll never forget my first trip to Japan. I walked into a studio and I saw the 300 ZX, a shape that was effortless, simple, powerful, and immediately I saw the power of Japan.
But by the mid-90s, the company was heading in the wrong direction.
Some of the cars of that era struggled in the marketplace. And the way the company reacted was really a kind of hint of what was coming.
As sales figures dropped, Nissan panicked. In an attempt to increase productivity and profits, they flooded the market with a series of bland and forgettable sedans that were aimed at the family market. They were practical cars, but a world away from the sleek designs the company had established its reputation on.
First of all, they had a very strong brand, very strong positioning, and that naturally tends to lead to a certain complacency. You know, marketers like to say that a strong brand buys time. It gives you time to actually make a mess of things, and then to realize you're making a mess of things. It buys patience with customers, and maybe gave them a little bit too much time.
These cars were fairly successful in the US, but in Japan, they were not resonating with the Japanese customers. And then management pulled back, and we started chasing other companies. Maybe Isuzu has an interesting SUV. So then that fundamentally changed our vision of SUV.
The SUV, or sports utility vehicle, hit the roads in the mid-90s and began to dominate the market.
Swim with dolphins.
Nissan's Asian rivals, Toyota and Honda, moved quickly to add this new must-have car to their arsenal.
Search for lost civilizations.
Yet Nissan delayed. They dismissed the SUV as a passing fad and only released the SUV years later.
I think that that's the part we lost in the 90s, that yes, some of the modern cars stumbled, but then our reaction wasn't rational. Our reaction was reactive and maybe lacked depth. So this is, I think, one of the reasons that happened. And we lost confidence as a company. A company that loses confidence loses focus.
In 1993, Nissan posted a $1 billion loss, the first time the company hadn't turned a profit in 50 years. 12 months later, the losses doubled, and in subsequent years, Nissan were forced to make plant closures and staff layoffs. Now, being offered a portfolio of uninspiring cars, the loyal fans of Nissan were also turning away from the brand. Dino Dale Carbonare's labour of love is his Nissan GTR. From his workshop just outside Tokyo, he's painstakingly upgraded and re-upgraded the car over the last 20 years.
I think I've been playing around with the car pretty much since I bought it new in '99, so it's been kind of simple mods initially for the first 10 years or so. The way the older engines feel, it just adds to the whole, I guess, character of the car, and the way it feels when you drive it. It's just a more satisfying drive for me.
So what did this superfan think of Nissan's cars in the 90s?
I don't think they were exciting design-wise, that's for sure. I mean, it was very boxy designs, big four-door sedans and saloons. And in the 80s and 90s, if you saw somebody drive a Mercedes, you would automatically assume that he was like a successful businessman. Whether if you were just driving a Nissan, just very common, nothing special there.
And these unexciting cars revealed far more about the problems inside the company.
It's more than a car.
It's an attitude.
The customer's first glance at an automobile, of course, is heavily reliant on design. When a design is great, not only they feel that the company is cutting edge, but then also the relationship of design and engineering is seamless. So generally, design, I think, is a reflection of the health of the company.
But Nissan was far from a healthy company. Their cars were symptomatic of an organisation that chose to prioritise engineering over design.
Technology in itself is only an enabler. It's the uses that we put that technology to. And if you glorify the technology, take excessive pride in that, what you're doing is very often engaging in engineer self-satisfaction that's completely disconnected from the regards of the customers. The die-hard Nissan lovers of earlier generations admired Nissan for its pizzazz, its flair, panache, and performance that grew out of technological capabilities, but wasn't primarily about the technology.
Nissan was stuck in a downward spiral, the company's global sales falling by more than 10% in just 5 years. In a desperate attempt to recapture their customers, Nissan began increasing production.
Customers had this astonishing plethora of options, a dozen different steering wheel options combined with so many different interior options and whatnot. All of that was fine, but the volumes on each of those different parts became relatively low. So your overall supply chain becomes more complicated, the inventory costs become much more complicated, and it just simply drove up overall costs.
In the US, for every Nissan car sold, the company lost $1,000 because of sky-high manufacturing costs. When they should have been streamlining production, they were offering you your automobile à la carte.
I guess the metaphor is you feel much more comfortable going into a restaurant which takes pride in 5 or 6 things they do well, rather than having 120 things on the menu. It's this idea that if you just simply put almost an infinite variety of options out there, you're going to hit everyone in the market. In so many ways, that was a failure.
In 1999, Nissan did the unthinkable. They started shopping around for a foreign buyer to save this proud icon of Japanese business. The French car makers Renault were in pole position. And their CEO, Carlos Ghosn, was well aware how desperate Nissan's situation was.
Welcome. There were many problems. I think profitability was a big issue. The brand was an issue. Second, the international operation of Nissan were completely disconnected from the headquarters. So there was absolutely no exchanges between the regions and the company. A lot of important functions did not even exist, or when they existed, they were really insignificant.
Behind the scenes, Ghosn had found a company that was dangerously disconnected. Nissan had ballooned with design studios, manufacturing plants and R&D hubs dotted all over the globe. One of them was in California, where Alfonso and his small team of 30 Nissan designers were based.
To work in an overseas studio was an interesting contradiction. We lived in a sandbox. It was a hub of dreams, but we were alone, to be honest. We were an outpost on Mars. We became painfully aware of what was during the spiral down, because the company started to need to sell things, the projects would get canceled. We knew the company was in a very shaky position, but we didn't necessarily feel we could do anything about it, that our voice would not be heard.
With debt spiraling to over $20 billion, Nissan was just weeks away from bankruptcy. And with Renault's offer on the table, their hand was forced.
I don't think that the management of Nissan had a lot of choice. It was making an alliance, some kind of an alliance or a merger, or facing bankruptcy. Nissan was very close to it because the bank stopped lending money to Nissan.
Had this kind of funny feeling, all of us, because we didn't know that Renault was in the bidding process. We had heard rumors of some companies, and some companies' denial was painful. Some companies were saying to invest in our company you'd be better off just putting millions of dollars in a trunk and sinking it in the Pacific.
On the 27th of March 1999, Renault bought 36.8% of Nissan. The Renault-Nissan alliance was born, and now the French car company had a big role to play in Nissan's future.
I think that would have been incredibly painful for them. We have to give credit to the president at the time for actually, being prepared to do that. To come out and say, this is our, first best option, and anything else is just delusional.
For someone who considers himself a Nissan man, not nice. We're no longer Nissan. We are now needing help, which of course, in the initial days doesn't feel that great. But then you realize, Renault is a design powerhouse. This is our chance to show our power.
The 90s was a decade to forget for Nissan. Registering financial losses in consecutive years, the company had debts totaling $20 billion. But as the new millennium dawned, there was a new hope. Renault President Carlos Ghosn was immediately appointed Chief Operating Officer of Nissan with one brief: to save the company.
Well, I think the first reaction is always a reaction of curiosity about the company, about how the company got to this situation, what are the root causes of the decline of the company. And there was also mixed with that a high level of curiosity about Japan. I would say it was a lot of excitement because the challenge was big.
In Ghosn, Nissan had hired a man with vast experience in the automobile industry. First working his way up the ranks at tyre company Michelin to become their South American COO at the age of just 30. He then joined Renault as vice president in 1996, where he masterminded their successful revival, earning him the nickname Le Cost Killer in the French press because of his tenacious approach to cutting costs. But this would be different. In Nissan and Japan, he was seen as an outsider.
I'm here to communicate to you the Nissan revival plan.
When Carlos Ghosn came to Nissan in 1999, there were many problems that he faced. First, of course, was staff morale, as you can imagine. People were discouraged. There had been a whole series of Japanese CEOs, and here was this foreigner. What could he do for the company? So here's a hard-driving, high-performing CEO, and how was he going to fit with the Japanese culture? I think that was a big question at the time.
First educated in Lebanon before receiving his engineering degree from École Polytechnique in France, Ghosn was familiar with the global market. But in Japan, international CEOs are a rarity, and Ghosn would have to navigate their unique business culture.
You obviously have a lot of handicaps. First, the handicap of the language. In management, communication is extremely important. And when you do not speak the language of the country where you're going to be operating, it's a big handicap. Not knowing deeply the habits of the country and the instincts and the values of the country also is a handicap. But there are also some advantages. Being an outsider, nobody could suspect that you have been accomplice in any way of what happened before.
In Ghosn's first significant press conference, he outlined how he was planning to change Nissan.
At the heart of the revival plan you have the products. We are car manufacturers, and as long as we are not able to put in a consistent manner attractive, exciting cars, technologically advanced cars, our revival will be precarious.
And he addressed the question of whether he would have full authority as a non-Japanese leader.
What type of problems do you expect to face getting workers to go along, getting the people of the country to go along, especially seeing many of these cuts ordered by primarily what they will see as an outsider?
People in Nissan have really enough of struggling with unprofitable company losing market share. As long as we are focusing on the revival of our company, people will accept why we are doing this. People know that our intention is mainly to put back Nissan back on track.
It was clear that he had been brought in to make significant changes in Nissan. And his outsider status actually enabled him to make some very tough but necessary decisions for Nissan's survival.
True to his management principles at Renault and his nickname Lacoste Killer, Ghosn closed 5 factories and cut over 20,000 jobs.
We will implement the following plant closures. Murayama plant, Nissan Shatai Kyoto plant.
One of the reasons, the most common reason for which a company usually do not make money is they have a very high level of costs. We had a lot of plants which were empty. We had a lot of headcount which was not really needed. And these decisions should have been done a long time in the past.
But there was more to his recovery strategy than just slashing the company's wage bill. He knew he needed to galvanize the demoralized staff. And to do this, he personally visited all of Nissan's sites around the world, even Alfonso's design outpost on Mars.
Very early on, a month or 2 months into the alliance, Mr. Ghosn comes to our studio in California, small, 35 people, middle of nowhere in San Diego, and he sat down with us. He was so curious about what our vision is, what is our understanding of Nissan, what is our connection to headquarters, do we feel empowered, do we feel we can help steer the ship. He allowed us to join in the voices that help steer the company. And this immediately triggered a volunteerism of the team.
One of the wonderful things he did was also to recognize that Nissan had great depth of talent, that the company wasn't in decline because its employees were not good, right? But rather he recognized that there was plenty of energy and potential in the company that perhaps had not been used. And his job as CEO was really to catalyze and energize the company.
Ghosn cut his teeth in the automobile industry as a manufacturing plant manager, so he knew the importance of an efficient production line, especially in Japan.
That had enormous symbolic significance in Japan. There is very much this celebration in Japan, particularly in the car industry, of Gemba, the place, where things actually happen. You go to the Gemba, so you go to the factory floor, you go to the sales floor. And that is the very antithesis of the American-style consulting model, where the smart MBA kids, come in and they tell the company what they've been doing wrong and bring their model, bring their analytics.
Many people inside the company who are engaged into the company.
And in his quest to empower staff, Ghosn was prepared to ruffle a few feathers. He scrapped one of Japan's most traditional business principles, the seniority rule, which prioritizes an employee's age as a reason for promotion.
Nissan was a very traditional Japanese company. Traditional, obviously, when we say traditional, it's not positive. Before it was impossible. Age was a discriminator. I didn't want age to be discrimination. I want age, on the contrary, to become a factor of respect for senior people, a factor of experience, but certainly not something which just forbid young, high potential to be promoted inside the company.
He kind of came in and he said, Well, you folks know exactly what's wrong with this company. You just haven't been able to have honest conversations. So he really just empowered people to speak really frankly. People knew that they had too many plants, that they had too many suppliers, that they had too many models, too many options, that they were paying too much. Everybody knew these things. But in a particular cultural context, you just couldn't have that conversation.
One of the fundamental pillars is that the power comes from within, meaning us, and that our survival, our revival is going to come from us. This is how you get employee buy-in. This is how you get the 120% of attention of your teams.
Ghosn had sparked Nissan's global staff back to life. And now that they were talking to each other again, he made them work together in what he calls cross-functional teams. A technique he first implemented while at Michelin, he would now apply within Nissan.
When I created the cross-functional teams, it's mainly to force people from different functions to work together on company problems. At the same time that I've done this, I mixed people. I took people who are more senior with people younger. We have male, females, we had Japanese and non-Japanese. I freed them from many of the constraints that they had. And they've been an essential tool for the revival of the company.
Rather than feeling helpless and uninvolved and watching the company decline further, they became energized, they became challenged, and they became excited to become part of Nissan's recovery.
To succeed in the world, we must reflect the world. The world is an undefinably diverse community of human beings. And then even many of the markets that we live in are diversified, but our company was not. And so all of these steps of diversity with women, with non-Japanese, I think helped to form a very realistic philosophy of life in our company.
In 2001, just over a year after joining the company, Ghosn announced annual profits of almost $3 billion US. But now, having stabilized the company, he and his vice president of design, Alfonso, needed to modernize Nissan's new cars. Nearly 2 decades since Carlos Ghosn took control as CEO, Nissan are once again one of Asia's top car brands. And today, at their main manufacturing plant in Oppama in South Japan, they're making a big company announcement. The production line has been stopped. The workers assemble, and the nation's media are led in. And here comes the guest of honor.
新型日産リーフが華麗にオフラインいたしました。改めて拍手をお願いいたします。それでは記念撮影を行います。車両に乗って登場したのは西川 CEO、山内 CCO です。
日産自動車は1933年に、創業して以来ですね、累計の生産台数が、先月8月の後半でですね、1億5000万台を超えたということでございます。
Hiroto Saikawa took over from Ghosn as Nissan CEO in April 2017, and he's particularly proud of the new Nissan Leaf.
いうことと、それとこの新型のリーフ、これから新しい歴史をですね、切り開いていく、この先兵となるこの新型リーフ。
And it seems the employees share their boss's enthusiasm.
皆さん、私が構えてと言いましたら、よしと言って構えてください。この新型リーフをお客さんのもとへ
But the Leaf is not just any new model. The car symbolises Nissan's return to a position as industry pioneers. A fully electric-powered vehicle, the Leaf was ahead of the curve when it was first released back in 2010, allowing Nissan to get a jump start on their closest rivals.
It was absolutely a game changer, really strikingly so. There was a heck of a lot of criticism of their EV strategy. It was considered to be naive, jumping straight to EV when the battery capability was so limited, all the range anxiety issues and whatnot. Honda would never admit this, but in response to that, Honda went and created a new EV program, Toyota 2. And both Toyota and Honda now look like laggards.
And consumers rush to buy the cutting-edge Leaf. Nissan's sales target for 6 months was exceeded in pre-sales alone before the car was even released.
When we receive word that the entire company is going to bring to the market an electric car that's a real car, 5-passenger, everyday working, it's not some niche thing. We're like, oh my God, like, what do we do? What is this? What is the manifestation of this dream of the company, the dream of the engineer, and how do we make customers who are unaware of this technology aware? So the first Leaf needed to stand alone, slightly outside of our portfolio, because we wanted everyone to notice revolution is here.
Now, Nissan has sold over 250,000 of these cars, making it the world's best-selling fully electric vehicle. But the Leaf has its roots in Carlos Ghosn's revival plan, where the engineers and designers work together in harmony.
Engineers are bringing to us, even while we're sketching, new ideas that they have about making this bullet fly through the air effortlessly. And then all of these things get incorporated. A lot of them are invisible. So all these little tiny surfaces are actually allowing the wind to leave the car cleanly. And this reduces drag and allows the car to go even further.
Since the Renault-Nissan alliance, Nissan's approach to design has changed significantly. Located in the heart of Nissan's modern facility, the work done in their design studios is a closely guarded secret. Nissan's designers are encouraged to experiment with new ideas on all aspects of the automobile, from the interface of the GPS system
サブメニュー的な、サブメニュー、はい、音楽とかなんかそういうの設定ができるものとか、もしくはこうスピードとか、スピード出てるんですよね。
To the shape of the cars. And today's designs are a far cry from the box-like Nissan sedans of the 90s.
車のデザイン、まずレイアウトから入りまして、面の表情ってよく言うんですけども、これリフレクションって言って、こっち側からの映り込みなんですね。そのラインがどういうふうに流れるかっていうのを考えながらやってます。
The biggest change is that by setting up structures in the company to make ideas become real, this is true freedom. To know that your dream can actually happen brought a sense of responsibility to our teams of designers. And because we knew that these efforts that we're doing, the journeys that we're embarking, actually are going to become real.
車が売られてから5年10年ぐらい皆さん使われるので、その場だけじゃなくてずっと大切にされて飽きのこないようにっていうのをいつも心がけてやってます。
But whereas 20 years ago, customers turned away from Nissan's models, now they are actively consulted and help solve problems, such as the design of a steering wheel.
意外とやっぱ皆さん同じところで困ってらっしゃるんだなっていうことと、あと車って例えばステアリング見てもいっぱいスイッチがあって、こういうのをお客さん全然使いこなしてないっていうのを聞けば明らかなんですけど、聞いてきたことによって社内でもやっぱりお客さんってそう言ってますよって言うと、ちゃんと考えないとねっていう風なムードになってくるんで、そうですね。で考えながらどっちがいいかなっていう時も やっぱ聞いてみてお客様に決めてもらうっていう。今までは上司にどっちがいいですかねっていうのを聞くんですけど、そうではなくてお客様が本当に、その状態でどっちがいいですかっていうのを。
This sense of foundation that the customer is our ultimate target, to understand, to be curious about their life, and to understand what their needs from day to day are, but also what the ambition, their dreams are like.
This practice allows Nissan to follow consumer trends much more closely. In Singapore, Nissan now lead the market in so-called crossover cars. Vehicles that combine the style of an SUV and the practicality of the hatchback. Ron Lim, head of sales in Singapore's flagship Nissan dealership, has witnessed this trend firsthand.
Right now, crossover sales make up almost 70% of our total sales. So we can see very strong sign here that consumer preference have changed a lot, and crossover has taken over the position of sedan.
Now, 1 in every 10 new cars bought in Singapore is a Nissan, and the Nissan Qashqai is one of the best-selling crossovers in the country.
Given the crossover fresh design and more stylish design, we are able to capture younger buyers, which is important for the sustainability of the brand.
Yet some Singaporean customers choose to buck the trends.
I think first of all, I'm kind of like a old school guy. I like a lot of retro stuff.
Car collector Mark Chow is part of a growing community in Singapore who crave the uniqueness and style of older models.
I like the shape of like older cars. Like there's hardly any electronics in it. I haven't even got a radio installed in it. So it's a really simple, basic car that's like very reliable. When I drive it around, I get a lot of like, interested looks. People like wondering what car is this from, where is it from, or how old it is, or like sometimes people giving me thumbs up in the traffic light. So it's quite nice to know that you're driving something unique.
Please welcome Nissan IMX Zero Emission Concept.
Whether it's classic cars or electric cars of the future, Nissan's reputation is now as strong as ever. In 2016, they recorded an annual income of almost $7 billion, and their profit margins are now 50% higher than the industry average. The man responsible, Carlos Ghosn, stood down as CEO and president of Nissan in April 2017. He joined the company as an outsider and left it as a celebrated honorary Japanese citizen.
He became quite a celebrity, not just because of his success, but also because of his charisma, which was very evident. And a manga was created to document the adventures of Carlos Ghosn, who was seen as a corporate superhero.
Now the company is under the leadership of a new and perhaps more traditionally Japanese-styled CEO, Hiroto Saikawa. Yet under him, Nissan's values of diversity and innovation that Ghosn strove so hard to implement will be preserved. It's the legacy of an international partnership, the Renault-Nissan alliance, that ensures that Nissan will remain healthy long into the future.
This was not about political games. This was not about let's be together and then figure out what we can do. This was, there are a lot of things we can do together, so how about we work together?
At the end of the day, Nissan's uniqueness is that we are mixed. We are one of the oldest Japanese car companies, but on the other hand, the spirit of Western partners is completely embedded in our DNA.
I consider myself as the guardian of these values, and I made sure that in every meeting, in every decision, the respect for the culture of people was real, and that every time we were working together, it has only one objective, is a better performance for each company.